MSNBC News reporting back in February of 1990, just 2 days before Nelson Mandela's release from prison after 27 years. We're back with Congresswoman Barbara Lee and Danny Schechter, who's author of a new book on Nelson Mandela. So, Danny, how did Mandela becomes this symbolic figure while in prison, and then he begins negotiations in secret while in prison with the apartheid regime. How does he end up getting out? Why does he end up being released? What turned the corner?
Well, there were three things happening. First of all, international pressure, not just of activists, but of banks who were refusing to roll over loans. Second, there was...
So the currency is plummeting.
Economic pressure on South Africa, orchestrated in part by the movement for change. Second, the sanctions that Ron Dellums and others fought for so many years came to prevail, and obviously South Africa could see where this thing was heading. You know, and I think the third thing, the persistence of the anti-apartheid movement, not just politically but culturally. The projects like Sun City, the anti-apartheid anthem, Free Nelson Mandela, the big concerts at Wembley Stadium. By the way, those concerts weren't even shown in the United States because of the American TV industry refusal to honor and respect him. So this was a struggle in our own country as well to get the news out about South Africa.
The moment, Congresswoman, when Mandela begins negotiations in secret in prison with the apartheid government to begin talking about the decriminalization of the African National Congress, his ultimate release and ultimate move to democracy, it's an amazing thing to think about. This is a man who is jailed, who is dubbed an enemy of the state, who is having negotiations while being in prison, while being dubbed an enemy of the state with the heads of state.
But that shows us, Chris.
Yes, please.
Sorry, that shows us that we have to keep hope alive, first of all, and we have to look at President Mandela's life and recognize that he was a freedom fighter. He sacrificed so much. He was in prison. He stood on principle. He was determined to end apartheid, and he knew how to do it. And that part of that were negotiations, and he had to negotiate with the enemy. And I think we have forgotten about those lessons oftentimes, and we need to remember that. Also, the people of South Africa had many, many friends, had a solidarity movement supporting their efforts throughout the world. I remember, again, very vividly going to Switzerland. We worked in Vienna, Austria with the International Liaison of Peace Forces, the World Peace Council, labor unions, the faith community, artists, entertainers, grassroots organizations, Reverend Jesse Jackson. But you know what? When we got to Europe, and when we started working with all of these organizations, we realized that our country was isolated. Here you had the Soviet Union. You had, quote, enemies of the United States supporting President Mandela, right, supporting the ANC. And, of course, that put all of the Americans who were involved in this movement at risk of being red-baited. And that is exactly what happened.
Danny, during those years while Mandela was in prison, and there's this growing international solidarity movement, the movement inside South Africa, what does that look like?
You know, it was a movement made up of trade unionists, community activists, people from all walks of life, a cross-class struggle, as they say, in South Africa, professionals, and church people like Bishop Tutu.
And was Mandela communicating with them at this point?
Mandela, he was not really able to get all this information, right, but despite all that, it was the ANC in exile led by Oliver Tambo, whose name is forgotten, right, who really put the decisive pressure to bear on the apartheid system. This story is told to some degree in the new movie, Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, and it's playing in New York and LA now, but on Christmas Day, it goes to 2,000 screens.
I'm hoping that we...
in America, and I was fortunate to be in South Africa and film the making and the meaning of this movie and this book, because the producers know that a movie can't tell the whole story.
We're hoping to have Idris Elba, who stars in the film, right here in All In next week. Congresswoman Barbara Lee, journalist Danny Schechter, thank you both for your time.